All right, good morning, everyone. It is about 10:59. We are going to be beginning our session here momentarily. We have a few alums who are going to be joining us, and we are also going to be joined by our Director of Alumni Affairs. So we do have an additional alum who is in the midst of a job transition, and so she is going to be joining us via Zoom here in a few minutes. I am going to turn the camera around to our students. So everyone has congregated to the outside edges. If everyone wouldn't mind to move toward the center, that would be lovely on account of our video for you guys can see yourself. I know you're probably like, I wanted to be on the outside edge for a reason. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be really helpful. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. So this is the first, I'm going to change this over to speaker view. LaFawn, would you mind to mute your mic just for a moment? I don't know if I might actually, there we go, beautiful. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started this morning. Thank you all for being here for our first of our #CareerReady series. Hold tight. So again, today we have some guests to talk with us about healthcare and education. So as we were planning these events, we really looked at combining some events to make the most of our alumni's time, and also trying to think about potentially if there were opportunities to combine certain professions or fields. And so when we combined education and healthcare, I thought, man, we've got a lot of frontline workers. And so we are just coming off of last week. I don't know how many of you all attended the leadership series where we heard from Dr. Crystal Miller, who is over WEDCO here in town, our local health department, and then William Huff, who is the CEO at the hospital. So we really kind of have had a couple sessions here recently where we have had a focus kind of on education, healthcare. So I am just looking at my notes, so forgive me as I do so because my brain is only so large. So again, we are going to have a few introductions and then have an opportunity for our alums to share a little bit about their time at Georgetown, as well as their profession, kind of how they got to where they are. We'll have some opportunity for Q&A. So we ask that you be thinking about maybe some questions that you might want to ask our guests today. So with that, I am going to just go ahead and turn it over. I am going to put this on speaker view, so we'll be able to just hear whoever is speaking at the moment. So LaFawn, you were up on my screen. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to move out here so that I can see. If you wouldn't mind to just unmute yourself and share a little bit about your name, major, when you graduated, what your current occupation is, and if there's anything else that's really interesting about kind of your professional or personal journey that you want to share with our students.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you guys for letting me be here today. I'm super excited to engage with you and meet you and see your faces. I always love anything that's Georgetown College related, and you can see my degrees proudly hang in my office, and always have since I started my journey. I graduated from Georgetown College too long ago, 1999. And I was a double major, history and English, and then got certified through the education department, which was also wonderful on campus, certified 7 through 12, so middle school and high school. And that's where I kind of began my journey. I loved every minute of Georgetown College. I was so prepared for the real world and for my career, had excellent professors. I was super excited to see Dr. Allen named president recently. She was a fantastic English chair when I was there, and former professor of mine. So I love keeping everything in the Georgetown College family. And you guys are certainly a part of that family. And so as alums, when you're alums, you'll join that part of the group. but Georgetown College all the way. Go Tigers. So I started again my journey in '99, fresh out of school. I graduated mid-year, became a history and English teacher in Northern Kentucky in a small independent district there. Taught there for 2.5 years at Walton Verona Independent School District, and then moved to Boone County Schools, which is the 4th largest district in the state. Stayed there for 10 years as a history and English teacher, always doing both subjects, 9 through 12, and then got a promotion, was named assistant principal at Dixie Heights High School, which is in the Kenton County district, and I've been here for 10 years doing that. Currently, I'm working on my doctorate in educational leadership through the University of Kentucky. Very excited to be doing that. I'm finished with 3/4 of my coursework and look forward to my dissertation, which is going to focus on COVID and its effects on leadership, the skill sets that educational leaders now have to have, how that has really changed the face of education. So I love that you paired education with healthcare today so that I can kind of talk about that and answer your questions. I'm an open book and pretty straightforward. I love answering questions about my career or education in general. So please feel free to ask away when the opportunity arises. Again, thanks for letting me be here. I'm glad to be here with you guys today.
Great. Thank you so much, LaFawn. We are working on getting our sound out of my laptop into the room. So I apologize that I did not test that before. Hold tight one moment. All right, LaFawn, can you just again, or one of you, just share your name so I can see if it's coming through our sound in the room now?
I'm LaFawn Benton, glad to be here today.
Thank you. I think we are still connected to my computer. Good old technology at its best, right? That's okay. I am switching it. Okay, can you say hello one more time? Whitney, why don't we start with you? Can you unmute and say hello?
Hi, this is Whitney.
Yep, there you are here. You are live and in the room.
Awesome.
Okay, let me turn it down now that everyone is awake. So did everyone in the room get a decent understanding of LaFawn and kind of, okay, great. So I've got lots of nodding heads, LaFawn. My apologies for not clarifying that before we got started. Thank you all for being our guinea pigs in our first session. And again, now everyone's awake, right? So great. Whitney, would you mind to just share a little bit, same kind of story, your time at Georgetown, when you graduated, and what your professional journey has been?
Sure. Well, good morning, Whitney Allen. I'm happy to be here with you all virtually. I live in London, Kentucky. I graduated from Georgetown in 2012. I did a double major in business administration and health science. Those are in the times before healthcare administration was really popular, before it was a degree at Georgetown. So I made my own. But yes, graduated in 2012 and then went on and got my master's in public health from Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond. And my current occupation is with United Healthcare. I'm the Director of Enrollee Services and Advocacy for our Kentucky Medicaid plan.
Great. Thank you all so much again for sharing a little bit about your journey. So we have one of the goals for our program was to give you all a variety of different folks from different kind of seasons in life. So maybe a younger professional, someone who's more seasoned, and just sharing a little bit about those areas. So the first question, and we'll just continue switching between LaFawn and Whitney, and then Lindsay Fannin hopefully will be joining us here shortly, and we'll allow her to introduce herself and just hop right on in, is just what did you learn or take away from your time at Georgetown that has impacted you the most? And ideally what maybe personally and professionally, and we know that those things are so interconnected, there's likely going to be a lot of overlap. So LaFawn, would you like to start us off by answering that?
Sure. I would say personally, just the significance of making great relationships with your professors, with the community, with all aspects of college life. That was something that really helped me to blossom and grow in a lot of areas. So while at Georgetown, I was able to network. My professors all knew my name. We worked side by side on a lot of projects that were in and outside of the classroom. So I would say just that significant relationship piece, personally. Of course, that also related very well professionally. I built a lot of skills, a great skill set at Georgetown, and my classes, my professors, it was all real world, it all related. It was all something that I used in preparation for my future career. And even today, working on my doctorate, I look back and take lessons that I learned in the classroom at Georgetown that professionally have helped me just in terms of content knowledge, and those personal skills, as long, even just soft skills of interacting with the people at Georgetown, whether those were my colleagues, my classmates, my professors, various deans. Everyone was instrumental in sort of helping me grow into a graduate, helping me grow into someone who was ready, career ready, and ready for life. So I would say the relationship piece was the biggest part of that, but also just the quality education I received professionally from Georgetown College professionally that really set me apart from others and helped me to be successful today.
Great. Thank you so much, LaFawn. I'm going to try and step in when I'm talking because I know it's odd to hear from just like a random voice. It's a little bit Wizard of Oz-ish, right? Like the voice behind the curtain. So what I'm hearing you saying is really the importance of relationship and connections. So team building probably comes into play there, as well as just the lessons that you learned in the classroom, the education, really making you. Those are some of our career readiness competencies that we focus on. So thank you for shouting those out without even, there was no like prepared, slide these words into your presentation. None of that happened, I promise. Whitney, would you like to share a little bit about your takeaways from your time at GC, both personally and professionally? What were some of the big nuggets for you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Laffin was saying about relationships being so important. And it wasn't just, what the quality education that I really got inside the classroom, but I think what had a large impact on me, and I didn't realize it at the time when I was at Georgetown, but extracurricular activities were really important. And I think when I was there, as a college student, I didn't really see the bigger picture and just thought, joining a club or an honorary society or a sorority was just kind of part of the college experience. But I feel like I ended up developing some skills by participating in those college activities that ultimately helped shape my career. When I was in Phi Beta Lambda, they did a speaker series. I would introduce the speakers, so learning just public speaking skills. I had joined a sorority and ended up serving in some leadership roles, including president. And I look back now and think that's really where I began to develop some of those key skills like communication and being a servant leader, time management, team building. So I think, on top of just the basic education of what you're learning in the classroom, but also developing some of those relationships, outside of the classroom and getting involved in some of those extracurricular activities really had a big impact on me as well.
Great. Thank you, Whitney, for sharing that. I'm going to ask our students, so this is going to be interactive, if not on the point of the presenters for me, but we've talked about career readiness competencies. I'm going to come around to the front so I can see some of you all a little better. But what are some of the things maybe that Whitney said, in addition to what we've heard previously that you might pick up on as, or one in particular, that is a very key career readiness competency. Anyone think about it? Yes.
I do specialize in that as much as possible and like you have passion for it, and to do good extra mind, to do extra help, show up, to know as much as you can.
Okay, definitely. Just one particular word I'm looking for. What am I doing right now? Speaking, yes, Chris.
I was going to say
Public speaking, communication. So communication is one of our career readiness competencies that in all of the areas in which we're going to have guests coming to join us this semester, communication is going to be key. So that's definitely something that we want you all to think about and take away. So I want to ask maybe a little bit different of a question, because we're talking about what you learned at Georgetown and how that's impacted you professionally. We want to give you an opportunity to share about your professional journey, but our Director of Alumni Relations, Olivia Coleman, is likely going to be popping in at some point. But just in the case that she does not get a chance to make it over, she always loves to ask alums, what is your favorite Georgetown memory that is appropriate to share with our students today? So I'm going to let you all think about that a little bit. I see Whitney smiling. So LaFawn, would you like to start us out? And am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes, it's LaFawn, just like it's
LaFawn,
spelled.
okay.
Yeah.
No worries. That's
You
how
got
what I
it.
went through.
Yeah.
And then I was like, let me just clarify. I apologize. I did not do that sooner.
No.
Do you
it's
have a
good.
memory at hand that is appropriate to share with our students that you would like to share?
I have a lot of amazing memories from Georgetown, and it's really hard to narrow it down to one. But I honestly, one that I think about a lot was walking across the stage at graduation. And it was Giddings Lawn, so it wasn't technically a stage, but just that moment of coming out of Giddings, walking down and just knowing that I had really done something amazing with my time. That felt like such a victory for me. And I was really proud of myself because it was tough. Georgetown's tough. There are no cake programs. There's not an easy major in the school. There's not those professors really expect the best and you get the best there. And I one of my favorite memories is walking across there and getting that diploma, and then doing that again when I got my master's from Georgetown a few years later. And I just remember it was a beautiful sunny day and everyone was smiling. And I just remember it being worth every late night, every study session, every paper I wrote. Whitney, I'll tell you, it's not easy being a double major. It's not easy having all the extra activities and balancing your life during those years and learning about yourself. But gosh, it was really worth it. And I still, to this day, it's one of my proudest accomplishments. I'm a mother of two. And like I said, I'm working on my doctorate, but that first bachelor's, that degree I got from Georgetown that day is a favorite memory for sure.
Awesome. Well, Olivia has joined us. So I don't know if you all can see her here in the back in her bright orange shirt. But Whitney, I'm going to turn it over to you to share about one of your favorite Georgetown memories.
I was smiling because I don't know that I have like a singular favorite memory. LaFawn, when you were talking about walking across that graduation stage on Giddings Lawn, that's also where I graduated. I remember that. I remember where I was sitting on the lawn and standing up and getting in line, and I did the Gatton. I don't know if there's still the Gatton Leaders program, but I remember kind of getting that medal from President Crouch. So that was a really good memory. But also I just have a lot of little kind of memories, and a lot of that was just around relationships, the people that I met there. And there's still I'm coming up on my 10-year reunion, and there's still a group of us that still meet up, that still talk, that still share life events with each other, that we're still really close. So I think just some of those memories from some of those friendships that I developed at Georgetown really stand out. But yeah, lots of little things. I loved homecoming, always loved all the homecoming festivities. So I remember that a lot too.
Thank you. We're going to transition to hear a little bit about kind of more details in your professional journey, because I think that's what is really important. As we've talked with our Grave Center staff and with Olivia, there's a lot of power in storytelling. I think that hearing the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, is very valuable, because we know that not every day is sunshine and rainbows. I joke, today is my daughter's 100th day of school. LaFawn, I'm sure you are familiar with those celebrations. So she has 100 palms of rainbow on her shirt, but we know that not every day is sunshine and rainbows. So if you're willing to share even maybe some of those more challenging moments, personally or professionally, because again, we know how integrated those are. And while maybe you're thinking of that, Olivia, do you have anything maybe that you want to share or say? And then we'll go back to LaFawn.
Yeah, thank you, Faith. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to you all for giving your time, talent, and treasure. I know when we met several weeks ago, we were talking about the makeup of this program. I know I thanked you all for that, but I want to thank you again. Our students, I was just having a conversation with a young lady who's applied to work at Georgetown, and she was asking what do I feel like it's been helpful for me to be a Georgetown alum and then also work here. And I told her it's neat to see the experience come full circle, because I've been a prospective student, been a student, now I'm an alum, but now I work here. And then I'm able to see other prospective students, and students then become alumni of the college and give back the way that you all are doing. So I just want to say thank you again. I want to encourage our students who are here, make sure you ask questions. You talk to people who have opportunities professionally with internships and jobs, and then just overall just career and personal and professional advice. So make sure you all ask questions, but just want to say thank you. Thank you, Faith and Stephanie, for putting this together.
Great, thank you. So before we transition, does anyone have any questions for our guests, just maybe about their time at Georgetown, before we kind of transition to talk a little more personally? Anything that we missed, or favorite meal in the calf? I mean, you got it here, right? You know, I don't know. I love Miss Joe's omelets when I worked here previously. That was just my favorite, right? Okay, so LaFawn, would you share just a little bit more detail? I know you've talked, but just professionally, kind of how you decided on what you wanted to pursue as a major. I think that's one of the things that is challenging at times for students. There's so many options. How did you decide on education? The process of maybe, you know, experience. Obviously with education, you're getting a lot of experience in the classroom throughout your curriculum, but that first job interview, maybe changing, you obviously worked your way up and finished your master's and working on a PhD. So just would love to hear about kind of your professional journey.
Sure. I always wanted to be a teacher. So for me, I never really struggled to choose a major or a direction. And you know, Whitney's talking about she's got a small group of friends and they're all still friends from Georgetown. I do too. And it's been, you know, over 20 years instead of 10, it's been 20 plus. And they're a group of about 5 or 6 of us, 7 if she can make our get-togethers, that we are just still, you know, super close because of our experiences. And I would say the majority of them struggled with trying to figure out a major. All of them were looking for the right direction. You know, again, I didn't struggle, but I knew that I wanted to be a teacher, and that was the reason I chose Georgetown College. To be honest with you, I had a full ride at Trancey. I turned it down for a partial scholarship at Georgetown because they had the best education program, and I wanted to be prepared. So my choice in college was probably a little bit more strenuous for me than what I wanted to do once I got there. And once I got to Georgetown, I knew I'd made the right choice. They prepared me for my career. They prepared me for every situation. It was real world. It was applicable. It was important. It was meaningful. Kind of like I've mentioned earlier, I I wasn't really stressed in my first job interview because I really was that confident in what Georgetown had given me and the skill set and the knowledge that I had. And so it wasn't about me being better than anybody else or saying the right things. It was about me presenting myself well and hoping that I was a good fit, but I didn't doubt my skills or my background. I felt so confident because of Georgetown. I really did. I knew that I'd been well prepared. So it was more of a matter of, is this a good fit? Are they going to think, or am I going to think that this is a good spot for me to be in? And Georgetown also taught me that everything happens for a reason. And you kind of wind up where you're meant to be. And so I knew I'd wind up wherever I was meant to be, and I did. And I took those skills that I learned from Georgetown with me. So, I've always tried to, instead of one major, I did two. And instead of being certified in one area of education, I got certified in two levels. I always try to make myself marketable as an educator, because when I graduated, teachers were everywhere. The market is definitely not flooded right now. We are in dire need of good educators. Sorry, that's the lunch bell. That's your real world connection. I've got kids running the cafeteria right now, 400 of them. Anyway, I really knew that I had to be competitive, and I knew that Georgetown gave me an edge just by having that degree from there and that background. But I also was really interested in the fact that they offered so many different pathways and opportunities and options. And so I know that that's only grown since I have left there. Same thing with the graduate degrees, the master's programs. Georgetown gives you a lot of options. Take as many of those options as you can. If you can take a couple of extra classes and get an extra certification or major or area of expertise, I always recommend that students do that, because when you get out into the real world, so to speak, you're much more marketable and you have a lot of different options for what you want to do. You may get out there and say, all I want to do is be a teacher. Now I'm a teacher and it's not for me. What else can I do? So always, keep yourself open that way and give yourself lots of options and opportunities would be my advice with that. I don't know if I answered your question, Faith. Did I miss something?
No, that's great. I think, you shared kind of like your desire and knowledge of your major was really kind of on point. Were there any hiccups along the road as far as, you moved, not sure how many teaching positions you've had or administrative positions, but obviously those additional certifications have been helpful. But any advice just as you're thinking about, as you mentioned, you're a little more seasoned in your career. So thinking about just after Georgetown, what are some of those things that helped you continue to sharpen yourself to determine what your next moves might have been?
Well, my first teaching position was nothing like I thought it would be. I was in a very small school, and I was not used to that because I was from Lexington. I graduated from Dunbar High School, and I graduated with 500-600 people. And the first school where I got an opportunity to teach, there weren't even 500 kids total in the building, grades 7 through 12. So that was a very odd environment for me. And I really had to try to adjust. And I tried to use those skills that I had learned at Georgetown to adjust, but teaching was not what I thought it was going to be those first few years. Working 15-hour days and every weekend and every holiday and trying to keep up with grading and lesson planning. And it was tough. And it broke my heart in certain ways because I just thought, man, this is not what I thought it would be. And I questioned for a while, like, am I really, working for $3 an hour? And am I really working all these hours? And is this really the career for me? And I stuck with it because I just knew from my experience, my training at Georgetown, that the first few years are tough and you have to really persevere. And I had learned grit. I had learned resilience, in school at Georgetown, and I stuck with it. And I switched districts and I was in a larger environment and I found much greater success. So that was one of the lows, was the beginning, kind of starting off. It was rocky and it wasn't all the sunshine and rainbows that I thought it was going to be every day. And so I am glad that I had a tough time at Georgetown sometimes trying to meet deadlines and all of the stress that comes with being a double major. And, I even graduated early and I held down employment while I was at school. And I did a lot of things that other students maybe didn't have to do or choose to do in college. So I feel like that helped prepare me as well. And then, when I switched to Boone County schools and taught there, it was a totally different environment. And I really, it was where I was supposed to be, so another low, I applied for a job here at Dixie Heights High School when I was still in the classroom, and I was not chosen as an assistant principal. And I thought, well, I'm just not meant to be there, like it's just not a good fit. And another job came open and somebody said, hey, I knew I'm from Georgetown. They said, hey, why don't you apply again? And I said, I didn't get it the first time. I don't want to apply again. And they said, you need to apply again. And I got the job. So it's all about timing, guys. It really is about being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. So sometimes the best advice is just to take a deep breath and remember what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled. Because in terms of your career, that's what I learned at Georgetown, what quality education was. And I knew that was my calling, but the path I took wasn't necessarily the one that I, wasn't sunshine and rainbows all day. So.
Great. That's very helpful. How many of you all in the room are maybe thinking about education as a pathway? Raise them high so LaFawn can see. Okay, so I think we've got 3 in the room. Awesome. Do any of you or anyone else have any questions for LaFawn before we transition to hear a little bit more about Whitney's journey? You don't be thinking of questions. Okay, be thinking. Okay.
You guys are awfully quiet to be future teachers.
So for those of you that are pursuing teachers, what year are you? First year student, second year?
I'm a
Okay.
freshman.
Freshmen and sophomores. Okay, so no questions. You got a seasoned educator in front of you. Okay, be thinking. All right, Miss Whitney, I'm gonna let you share a little bit about your journey from Georgetown to where you are today.
Yes, so when I first got to Georgetown, I had the career aspiration to be a doctor. So I started with a biology major. I took a couple of biology classes and I hated it. I did not like it. It was all about plants and like animals. And I was like, I don't care about this. I want to dive like right into kind of the human body. And so I decided to switch majors and do health science, kinesiology, and business to do the healthcare business aspect of healthcare. And it was really looking to do hospital administration, what I thought of at the time. So Georgetown was great. I worked with Holly at the Calling Career Center at Graves to do some internships. She helped me get an internship while I was at Georgetown for at Georgetown Community Hospital. It might have switched names since then, and I worked in the CEO president's office, just doing some basic kind of admin things. And then I worked over in the marketing department. So that really got me a taste of what it would be like to work in a hospital on the admin side instead of direct patient care. And then also got an internship while I was at Georgetown for Baptist Health in Lexington. And I would travel around to some of the hospitals doing some just basic kind of admin internship work, and at some of the outpatient locations too that they had in Richmond and in Lexington. So when I graduated, I would say probably a little bit of like I don't want to say a disappointment, but something I wasn't expecting, I guess, was I thought it would be so much easier than what it was to get a job at a hospital, kind of mid-level aspiration, a career, and that did not happen immediately. I got an entry level position doing sales. That was not at a hospital, but it was within healthcare. And I thought, this is not what I wanted to do. And then got a job at a data entry place, just kind of in between. And then finally, after applying so many times just to try to get my foot in the door, got a job at St. Joe's London. And it was to be an assistant for the director of the pharmacy. And so at that point, I didn't even care what the position was. I just knew that I needed to get my foot in the door in the hospital to then start working my way up. So I got that job and I was there for probably 8 months or so. And I realized this is not what I thought it was going to be. It was a very much corporate culture. When I realized, looking back at where I'm from a small town, I went to a small liberal arts college. I was like, you know what? I want to get more in the smaller community, like nonprofit work. And so I got a job as an outreach worker at a FQHC, which is a federally qualified health center. So it was a rural health clinic in Knox County. And I absolutely loved that job. I got to work one-on-one with patients. I got to partner with community leaders and really helped build that clinic, their communication strategy, their marketing strategy, how they were outreaching to local businesses. And I loved that. And then someone approached me from the Kentucky Primary Care Association, which is a statewide group of all the federally qualified health centers, all the rural health clinics in the state. And I had interactions with them just in my normal kind of day-to-day operations when I was at that local FQHC. And they approached me about a job to manage contracts to work with the state of Kentucky to manage an application assister enrollment contract. So I did that for a few years. And then I was reached out to from just networking to come work for United Healthcare. And I remember almost like laughing when I got that call. Like, I don't want to work for the largest healthcare like insurance company conglomerate in the world. Like, that's not really what my experience has been and my love for nonprofit and community work. But I had the opportunity to be the business development lead to help pave the pathway for the Medicaid plan for Kentucky. So I got to work with local community partners, local providers, with the state to do business development. So just hearing kind of what their mission, their values were really aligned with mine. And I thought, well, I could really make a difference here, right? I've been in the Medicaid space for a while, and I've seen what worked well for health insurance companies and what didn't work well. So I really thought I could make an impact on that. So I took that job, and I've been here going on 3 years now, and switched roles from the business development lead. I was offered to be the director of enrollee services and advocacy for our health plan. So I'm on the executive leadership team for the United Healthcare Plan for Kentucky. So I would say the biggest kind of theme in my career moves was networking. My last 3 career moves was I was not looking, to leave my current job. I was happy where I was, but it was someone through networking had reached out and say, hey, I think you'd be great at this job. Are you interested? So I think networking really helped those jobs strategically fall into my lap. So I cannot emphasize how important that networking is. And people are watching and listening and evaluating you for roles probably before you even realize it. So making a good impression really is important. So I would say it was, I will not lie, it was rough at first. Just as soon as I graduated, I really thought that I had a lot of friends that were in education and they quickly got jobs right where they wanted to be. And it took me a while. It took me about a year to get into that FQHC, or about a year and a half, I guess, to get into that FQHC position. And then I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. But it took me, getting that job at the hospital, kind of making those stepping stones to realizing this isn't what I thought it was going to be. and trying something else. But, after that first kind of jump, everything is really like fallen into place. And again, the biggest part of that is networking and people saying like, hey, I had this interaction with you, or I've worked with you for the past X number of months. I think you'd be great, in this leadership role. So networking was really key for that.
Great. Thank you so much, Whitney, for sharing a little bit about your journey. How many folks in the room are maybe thinking about doing something in the healthcare space? It could be more on the provider side. Maybe you're looking at being pre-med and going to med school, or you're thinking maybe doing something maybe in healthcare that's more administrative. Anyone in that space? Okay. What year are you all? You don't mind me asking?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore and a senior. Okay. Do you care to have any questions or share are you thinking provider, physical therapist, so provider. Okay, perfect. Any questions for anyone? I have a few, but I'm hoping that maybe you all have some of the things that Whitney shared and LaVon shared and sparked some questions for me. So does anyone have any questions for Whitney or? Yes.
So how did either?
Do you mind to stand up just so they might be able to see you on the camera a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still on the screen, but anyway.
Right
How
on
did
the
either
edge.
of you guys use your relationships from Georgetown to get you that initial job once you graduated?
So
Did you hear the question? Okay.
Yeah, relationships from
Okay.
Georgetown to get the initial job. I utilized the Graves Center, and Faith did not pay me to say this, I promise. I really had a good relationship with the Graves Center for Calling and Career. I did all of their resume building workshops. I was constantly talking to, it was Holly at the time that was the director, about internship possibilities. So she really helped me get those 2 internships when I was a student at Georgetown, which really kind of helped me think, this is what I think I want to do when I leave. And then she was, happened to be from London, where I'm from. So we had some mutual kind of ties, and having that relationship and knowing some of the same people, and she knew some of the key players kind of in London where I was wanting to get a job at the hospital, was really helpful too.
And
sorry, go ahead, LaFon.
no, that's okay. I would say the relationships that I used first were really with my professors, who gave me great recommendations and were able to help me look good on paper. I mean, and being able to, like what he's talking about with the resumes and working on really presenting yourself well for interviews and knowing what people are looking for and preparing for those. And then a lot of the people that I graduated with wound up going into education. Several did. And we all actually are now in the same county system. We wound up over the years. They went different places and I went different places, and we all wound up in Kenton County. So Northern Kentucky. So just with having a lot of them graduate in the spring and I graduated in December, they already had kind of a semester under their belt, and they were able to say, hey, there's a job in this system, or there's a job at this school that's open. Let me call people I know in that building. And so really, again, that networking and putting in a good word for a colleague, it all came back to Georgetown. And so many people from Georgetown really helped me get an interview, or know what was open, or yes, this is a great place to work, giving me good feedback, helping me to understand sort of the processes necessary to be able to apply, and just what to do. I mean, when you're new, you're nervous and you're trying to figure out the systems, and my Georgetown connections helped with that.
Thank you. Is there another question? I thought I saw another hand. Yes, Sydney.
So I actually graduated from Walton in 2020, and my brother went. He graduated in 2016. How long were you there?
Well, that makes me feel old rather than seasoned, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. This is my 23rd year in education. So I guess I've technically been doing this longer than you've been alive. So that's awesome. Small world.
Right. I guess my question is, what is something that's like a key thing that students can do now to potentially prepare them for whatever career field they want to go to? Like, what can you utilize right now?
I'm going to jump in on this one because I see it every day in what I do. Always present yourself in the ways that are respectful and professional, because everything follows you. I unfortunately have to have that conversation with students all the time. Whatever you put on social media, let it be positive, let it be professional. However you conduct yourself at a job, I don't care if you're flipping hamburgers or you're working in an office and answering a phone. Conduct yourselves in the way that would make you, your family, and Georgetown College proud, because your reputation really does precede you, and you want to put your best foot forward all the time. Whitney mentioned that earlier, just presenting yourself well. That's something you can start doing now. Present yourself in the ways, like Whitney said, if I'm in a meeting with 4 superintendents, which I was last week, it's an informal interview. I mean, they're watching you, they're looking, they're noting how you're dressed, how you comport yourself, how you are able to exhibit knowledge of what you're doing, and your current position, and that may help you further down the road. And similarly, things that aren't so professional or positive can affect. So always be aware that what you put out there for the real world, whether it's on social media, whether it's how you act every day, whether it's how you present yourself in class or at your current job, it matters. And that's something actually really important that you can do right now to help your future.
I just want to echo that, and what I'd said before, just re-emphasizing that, how important first impressions are, that they're watching, they're listening, they're evaluating you, probably before you realize it. So making that good first impression is really important. And establishing a good mentor, I think, is key. And that's just something to keep in mind for right now, right? And then looking forward, the farther I get in my career, I realize how important a good mentor is. And I think my first one was back when I worked at that FQHC, that small rural health clinic, and it was my boss. And even though I was only there for a couple of years, I still keep up with her even today. And then establishing, a mentorship with someone that you aspire to have their role down your career path. So, maybe reaching out to a physical therapist, occupational therapist in your town, or that you're would love to eventually have a role like that, and just having monthly kind of informal discussions with them is something I still do, even when I'm on this executive leadership team for this company. I have mentors for people higher up in the organization that eventually I would love to have a job similar to them, and they're helping kind of coach me, like, it would be important that you had this skill set, or you need to have this experience in order to have this job. So I think mentorship is really important.
Great. Those are both very valuable pieces of information. So I hope that you all will let that sink in. Does anyone else have any questions? We've got about 5 to 10 minutes left. So we've got some time for questions. We do want to do a little group photo. We always like to do a group photo, particularly when we have alumni guests. So we will all gather in our masks and put you guys in side by side mode to do a photo here in a few minutes. We do have a few more minutes if people have additional questions. Whitney, you talked about networking. Can you share specifically, what are some of the ways in which you network with folks? I mean, obviously, passing out business cards when you're in person, but now that we are in a world of doing events virtually, or what are some ways and suggestions that you would have for networking for our students? And sorry that I put you on the spot with that question.
No, that's fine. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I think that's a good networking tool. And when I meet someone new, pass a business card, I always make sure that I add them on LinkedIn. And that's just an easy way for people to keep up with how you're progressing in your career. I think another piece, and this sounds very elementary and basic, but it's being you and just doing your job. And I won't forget that how I got to United was a referral from someone when I worked at Kentucky Primary Care Association, that I'd maybe been in 2 meetings, like external meetings with a community partner. And she referred me for this job. She just remembered like how I presented myself, how I spoke, that I was knowledgeable in certain topic areas. And she remembered that even though it was months ago. And she said she found out that they were, looking for a position, a business development lead. And she said, hey, what about this girl? And then they reached out, and that's how it happened. So that just goes back to, sometimes just in your everyday interactions or doing your job or, being a student, that people are listening and watching, and maybe there's not an opportunity at that time, but when something comes up 3-6 months down the road and they say, I'm looking for a person that has this skill set, they may remember an interaction that you had. So I think a lot of networking had just came before, because a lot of my positions had been kind of external facing, that I had a lot of interaction with community partners, providers around the state, that I got a lot of exposure to different pieces of the healthcare industry, which was helpful. And then I think another part of that was just being really involved in LinkedIn. London also has a young professionals like networking group, so getting tied in for that. So maybe if your local hometowns have any type of young kind of professionals networking group, would be really good to get tied into as well.
Those are great suggestions. Thank you, Whitney. LaFawn, do you have any thoughts about networking? I know within your field in education, you've talked a little bit about just your connections with Georgetown, but do you have any other suggestions to add on to Whitney's?
Yeah, actually a really great tool is Twitter. That's an easy one that we're finding more and more that there are opportunities to engage in discussions and join groups and follow others, and others will follow you. That social media piece is actually a really great way to network. So, Facebook, even, I'm a member of several different principals groups and leadership groups that give you advice and leads on even hiring people, things to read, things to think about, information about the latest trends. So be really smart in the way that you use your social media, because it can really help you reach out. I've recently connected with some educators out on the West Coast, for example, and working on some projects with my doctorate. And I did it through Twitter. And they're fantastic. And I've learned so much from them. And I hope that they have found it valuable as well. But, when you're social networking on social media, make sure that you're looking for like-minded people and groups to connect with, because that can be a great tool as well.
Great, thank you so much. Any final questions before we do a photo? Okay, so thank you all both so much for joining us today and for your wisdom and insight. I think it's been very beneficial. I would encourage you, as we've talked about LinkedIn and finding a mentor and all of those things, I will shamelessly plug the Graves Center in that we can help you find a mentor. We have alumni who have responded and say they're willing to mentor students, and have opportunities that we can share about internships and helping you maybe set up a LinkedIn profile if you have not done that. So if those are things you're interested in, please come and visit us. You can find out how to schedule appointments on the portal
under the Grade Center. And because we cannot exchange business cards, I will be sharing your contact information, Whitney and LaFawn, with all of you in attendance today. I will also be sharing the Nexus code as soon as we take the photo. So your Nexus attendance, I'll be able to get your information and email you all that, their information for being here today. So if everyone wouldn't mind to move to the front. Stephanie, would you mind to take a photo? And let me get you guys situated here. So again, thank you so very much. Let me see if I can. So if you all can, I'm going to take a picture of the screen. So if you'll come stand in front of the screen. Just there we go. Okay, Olivia, do you want to? Yeah, if you want to come in as well. Can you guys scooch this way some? There's a lot of. If Sydney can be in like the middle. Yes, Sydney. Yeah. How are we doing over here? Okay, all right.
Smile under your mask.
Okay, thank you all so much. Nexus code, if you all want to go ahead and get your, go ahead and get logged in. Yes. Hold on 1 second, if you don't mind. Thank you all so much. You are welcome to hop off, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the meeting, but thank you all so much.
All right. Thanks, Faith. Bye.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.